Isaias, I'll start with you. Do you think the climate crisis is going to disproportionately affect LGBTQ plus people?
Absolutely. The climate crisis is known to affect Black, Indigenous people of color, also communities that are, of course, historically whites. And I think something important to note is that, when we talk about the climate crisis, we're not just talking about people's race. We're talking about multiple shared identities, those that are queer and trans, those with disabilities, those who may not have asylum status.
Look, sorry, I'm just going to rein this one in. I'm just going to rein this one in early doors. How is it affecting gay people worse than other people?
Yeah, so queer and trans communities don't have access to proper healthcare already due to socioeconomic standards. So as the climate crisis continues to get worse, such as heat waves that are happening across cities, many of these communities don't already have access to affordable housing. So then they're forced to go to local cooling centers, which are often shut down or overpacked with people who are already unhoused. Right. So these communities are often forced out of these spaces.
Peter, whereabouts in Britain do we have this cohort of gay people who are, it would appear, living on the streets, unable to access healthcare or get any housing, and therefore will be massively impacted by climate change? I just don't understand this at all.
Well, first let me say that obviously climate destruction threatens us all. Everyone is at risk. So it's an issue for all of us.
Yeah.
But it is true that marginalized communities, whether they be LGBT, disabled people, Black and ethnic minorities, are possibly at more risk because on average their income is much less. So when they're faced with
Hang on a minute. I'm not having that. I'm sorry, Peter, I'm not having that at all right? Because a load of people who are in same-sex relationships don't end up having kids and therefore don't pay for the kids and accumulate some of the kind of costs that a lot of people who are in straight relationships do have. So I'm sorry, I just don't buy this idea at all that we're living in a country full of impoverished gay people. It's not the reality. We both live in the same country, Peter. It's not true.
No, Patrick, I wasn't saying that. I was saying that on average, LGBT plus earnings are often, not always, but often less than that of the average straight person. But I'll get back to the main issue. I'll just give you one example. During the recent horrific bush fires in Greece, a same-sex couple with a young child went to an emergency shelter, which they'd been assigned to as victims of the fire, and they were turned away because the shelter didn't want to accept a gay person and their kid. Now, there's an example of discrimination not far away in developing countries, but right here in Europe.
I really, I don't want to say I don't believe that because that's whatever that person's lived experience was. But in relation to those fires, we were also told that they were down to climate change. And lo and behold, about 70 people have now been arrested for arson. So there is quite a lot of misinformation about that. Isaias, I will just throw it back to you. So you genuinely are of the mindset that climate change is going to disproportionately affect people because they are gay or trans. Is that right? And that's because all of those people are worse off?
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is that the climate crisis is not directing nor attacking directly queer and trans communities. Systemically, if we look at it through a legal institutional lens, policies and practices have been discriminatory towards minority communities, specifically also those that hold LGBT identities, are already through a systemic lens, don't have access to those resources.
But okay, now I want you to explain that to me. Now this is the bit I need you to explain to me, right? Because you're in Los Angeles, okay? So you guys might do things differently over there. We have a National Health Service over here, so whether you're gay, straight, whatever else, you can just walk into that and access care. We have a National Education Service as well, so whether you're gay or straight or whatever, you can get on that. Public transport, we have that, so whether you're gay, straight, trans, you can get on that. That doesn't exist in America?
It does, but we're talking specifically about climate disaster. So institutionally, when people are already forcibly displaced by climate events such as floods, hurricanes, wildfires, these centers that are opened up already often have such barriers, such as those who are already in those shelters perpetuate homophobia, transphobic remarks. The people that are in those shelters are often pushing for certain policies and practices to prevent queer and trans communities to get those services. Now, I'm not saying that when you're going to the medical office or the doctor's office or other educational resources that you'll be turned away for being gay and trans. However, here in the United States now, we're seeing much more stricter laws and bans towards queer and trans ideologies and educational resources that should have been invested in these communities due to right-wing conservative groups that we're facing today.
Right. Okay. And
Can I just chime in here?
Please, for the love of God, do.
Primarily in the developing world, Patrick, there have already been well-documented examples in poorer countries where there have been floods, hurricanes, and fires of LGBT plus people going to emergency centres, seeking help, and being turned away. Wow. And those who have been accepted, and some have been accepted, have been subjected to abuse and threats from other people in the emergency shelters.
But is this happening here? Is this happening here in Britain?
I want to emphasise, it is an issue for everyone. It is
but not Brits, though, is it? I mean, is it happening here in Britain? Or are we talking about someone going,
No.
someone... Right, OK.
No.
So no, it's not, then. Right, OK. All right. But it is happening quite a lot in America.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't know about America, but in developing countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan, in some South Asian countries that have suffered...
But that's not right, OK, but that's not down to right-wing conservatism, that, is it? Peter? Like our chap was saying.
No.
Right. So what's that down to?
Not in those countries.
What's that down to?
Well, I think there are various cultural views in some of those countries that are hostile to LGBT plus people.
Right.
And when it comes to a crisis or an emergency, sadly, the LGBT plus victims sometimes, not always, but sometimes do face discrimination. And they can't access the services that are available to everyone else.